Hi everybody, I'm Ryan. Today we're going to look at the Legacy metagame, and so many things have happened in the past week or two. Legacy is evolving and changing, especially with the release of these commander cards on Magic Online, and with hyper-relevant tournaments happening this past weekend with Eternal Weekend. So let's check it out. There was a huge amount of tournaments that were happening this past weekend that mattered, and this is what the metagame looked like. At the very top, with the most popular deck, was Blue-Red Delver. There's no surprise there, with 17.6%. But there was a deck that was chasing Blue-Red Delver in White Stompy with 16.4%, using a few of the commander cards that were printed, the initiative commander cards. And that's really incredible to have something chasing Delver as the singled out most popular deck. And then in third place is 4-color control at 7.3%. So there's definitely a large gap in popularity between Blue-Red Delver, White Stompy, and the rest of the field. But you'll notice that there are a ton of viable decks in Legacy. 30% of the decks were rogue, third-party decks that there weren't even enough in the field to list on the graph. So let's look at these popular decks. The most popular deck was Blue-Red Delver. Blue-Red Delver is a deck that has existed for a while in Legacy. It is widely considered one of the stronger decks in Legacy. It's just a tempo deck to apply pressure, protect that pressure, and stop what your opponent's doing with things like removal spells and Force of Will. We're going to spend too much more time on Blue-Red Delver, because I think anybody that's into Legacy is pretty familiar with it. But the new hotness on the block is White Stompy. So White Stompy is basically a Stoneblade deck, but it plays White Plume Adventurer and Seasoned Dungeoneer out of the commander decks to venture through the dungeon, to take the initiative. It ramps these out with City of Traders and Ancient Tomb, which means it can play things like Lotus Petal, Chalice of the Void, and some more expensive cards. And it just plays creatures and attacks and removes with Solitude and Touch of the Spirit Realm and Swords to Plowshares out of the sideboard. This is becoming the most popular deck. The fact that this challenged Delver as the most popular deck, even though, speaking from experience, White Plume Adventurer and Seasoned Dungeoneer were almost impossible to get this past weekend. Both literally finding them, even if you had the money, and even if you had Mana Traders, often they were out of stock. This deck very possibly could have been even more popular. So it's something to keep our eye on, and maybe something that will catch a ban, or even something to just dethrone Delver. We'll see. And the third most popular deck was 4-color control. 4-color control, I think, is my favorite deck in Legacy at the moment, though I haven't been able to play the White Stompy deck yet. It's essentially a Minxinbu control deck. You play Uro, Force of Will, stuff to stop your opponent from doing things, and then you get giant card advantage through Uro and Narset and even Minxinbu, and eventually just overwhelm your opponent. I really like the play patterns of this deck, and it is super fun to play. So that's the overall metagame from top 32s in challenges and premier events, 5-0s in leagues, and 4-0s in prelims. But let's actually look at the top 8s. And for maybe the first time ever, there's quite a few decks in the top 8s, because between challenges, Eternal Weekend, there were 3 major Magic Online tournaments. So Blue-Red Delver is still at the top with the most top 8s at 28.1%. But however, in second, even though they were a small percentage of the field, Elves came in at 21.9%. And then there's a million-way tie in third place with Reanimator, Doomsday, Lands, White Stompy, Blue-White Stoneblade, all sharing third place in top 8 appearances. So even though White Stompy is a huge part of the field, it didn't actually place that many in top 8. So that's pretty relevant. Second off, Elves was a small portion of the field, but placed quite a few in top 8. That could possibly mean that it has a good matchup against White Stompy, right, which is the new hotness, which might have increased its win percentage. It's also, fine against Delver. So Elves is very much making its way to the forefront. Its win percentage compared to number of decks it put in the tournament is very high compared to other decks, especially White Stompy. Kind of look deeper into the Elves deck. It is meant to play a bunch of Elves, which lets you generate a ridiculous amount of mana to eventually cast a Craterhoof Behemoth, which you find through things like Natural Order, Once Upon a Time, Green Sun Zenith, drawing a bunch of cards, and then since you already have a ton of creatures, you just kill your opponent pretty quickly. So the lesson we can take here is that Legacy is in flux, and it's important to keep our eye on this. Now, Delver is still the safe deck. It is the most popular deck. It has been the most successful deck. But it's possible between Elves and White Stompy is Delver is going to slowly become less dominant. We'll see what happens. If you like this video, if you want me to analyze metagames in a different way, please let me know in the comments. And please like and subscribe. Check me out on social media. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.